Yo, can we talk about some Joe, I was supposed to say Donald Trump moments, some Joe Biden moments? We got some big old Joe Biden moments I want to talk about. So there was 2 Fox reactions to Joe Biden recently that I wanted to react to because they just seemed completely delirious. Because it was very milquetoast Biden statements in reaction to press questions, where they're asking things completely unrelated to what Fox brings the topic to, and Fox reacts in a very, I would say, coping and molding and just delirious way. Let me give you one of the 2 examples, then I'll give you the second example. This is Biden talking about the Secret Service at his home and why he's staying at one house versus the other house, because he is allowing the Secret Service to make one of his homes secure at the moment. That it's very boring. It's like, hey, I'm not staying at this house in Delaware because the Secret Service needs to make sure that the Delaware house is secure, so I'm staying somewhere else. That's all Joe Biden says in response to a press inquiry. Look how Fox responds.
The reason I'm here today, just for one day, I know I'm on vacation. I'm not. I have no home to go to. The Secret Service has torn my house up in a good way to make it secure. So I have no place to go when I come to Delaware except here right now. I'm only here for one day.
Are you homeless?
No, I'm not homeless. I just have one home. I have a beautiful home. But I'm down here for the day because I can't go home.
Yeah, that's great. That's also insulting like everything else.
Yeah.
He's got 3 homes. He's got the White House, the Camp David. There's so many places this guy can go. Joking, and the reporter's joking about homelessness, which is a dramatic problem in this country, throughout this country, and he's making jokes about it.
What? That's her read of the situation? That's her read of that milquetoast statement of him saying, I can't go to my Delaware house because the Secret Service needs to make sure it's secure. Why do you hate the homeless, Mr. Media and Mr. Biden? How dare you? How dare you joke? I support a very serious candidate who would never make a joke, far less an offensive joke like that. Donald J. Trump. Get the fuck out of here. He's not joking about homelessness. He specifically, when asked if he was homeless, said, no, I'm not homeless. I've got a beautiful home. I just can't go there right now because they're making it secure. This is the most boring ass presidential, just back room type of business. Just, hey, let's make sure the president doesn't get killed in his home. We all saw what happened with that one potential Nancy Pelosi assassin when they broke into her home and nearly beat her husband to death with a hammer. I think the Secret Service should do their job to make sure that doesn't happen to Joe Biden. And she, so desperate for a dunk, just has to grab onto something. You know, sometimes when I react to videos, I definitely, when I used to not do as much filtering beforehand, people just link stuff in chat, I click it, I just watch it on stream. And I still do that every once in a while. But sometimes when I do that, I have very little to react to. I have very little to add, either because I agree with what's being said or I'm at risk of repeating myself. And that happens a lot. I repeat myself a lot when I'm reviewing debates and stuff like that. I want to, number one, hammer a point home. But also, if I have nothing else to say, I feel bad if I'm not contributing. So I just end up sometimes repeating myself. This feels very much like she has nothing to dunk on. She has nothing to complain about this statement. This is a very milquetoast, boring statement you would expect from any presidential administration trying to keep the president not dead, not assassinated. And instead of reacting to it like a normal person, she just has to find a dunk. She is channeling the worst aspects of Twitch streamers. Same vibe as Fox. What's this? Now, somebody please think of the homeless. I'd like to see her proposal for public housing, by the way. I'd love to see Fox talk about how they're going to deal with the homeless crisis. Anyway, next Fox News complaint. Biden, when he's talking about his age. The only thing that comes with age is wisdom. Okay? Little cheeky remark. Like, hey, I might be kind of old, but I've learned a lot in my day. Rootin', tootin', shootin'. Very, again, bland Biden statement you would expect any day of the week. I have nothing to comment on it, nothing to say about it. It is true that with age does come wisdom. I do believe that Joe Biden's experience in the Senate, whether on the Foreign Relations Committee or the over 50 years 50 to 60 years he's been involved in politics. He's met a lot of people, learned a lot of lessons, learned how, you know, the sausage is made, so to speak, if you're familiar with the terminology, and is familiar and has a decent amount of ties and relationships in the House and Senate in order to try to get legislation through. I think that's part of the reason why the infrastructure bill got through. I think that's part of the reason why the Inflation Reduction Act got through. I think his experience on the Foreign Relations Committee is part of the reason why we've been able to get so much aid to Ukraine, even if I still think much of the aid is reliant on old, defunct stockpiles, and we do need to increase artillery production, stuff like that. I don't know if Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris or somebody with not nearly as much experience would have taken the action he did in reaction to the invasion of Ukraine. I don't know. It's all speculation, but I do think with age does come wisdom. I do prefer a younger candidate. Most voters prefer a younger candidate. I think that people want to know that and I do think that Joe Biden would see a second term through, but there is some nervousness about being up in age in the highest office of the land if something happens. Of course, we have a secession process. Next would be Kamala Harris. Then it would be the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. I think Pete Buttigieg is like 17th in the line of secession. So it's not like the government would literally cease to function. But I understand people's desire to want a fresh new face in politics after so many years of the establishment, the American establishment in this country, being unable to break the gridlock and get change that many people desperately desire. For example, around healthcare. Joe Biden has been able to get through Medicare negotiations. That's been a goal of Democrats for the last 20, 30 years, to have it so we negotiate drug prices. Fantastic. That's great. We still don't have a public option, which he promised on the campaign trail. And so I think people have a desire for a fresh face, and people have a desire for youthful leadership. But that type of balanced critique is not the type of response that Fox News gave. Listen to this.
Oh. I tell you what, someone said, that Biden, he's getting old, man. I tell you what. Well, guess what? The only thing that comes with age is a little bit of wisdom. I've been doing this longer than anybody, and guess what? I'm going to continue to do it with your help.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who would love to be growing old, like the 13 dead service members in Afghanistan. They don't have that choice.
What the fuck is that curveball? What the fuck is that curveball? Look, I know politics is dirty. I know people use scummy ways to attack people. But what a fucking underhanded rat style comment. What a scummy piece of shit thing to say. He's not commenting on Afghanistan. He's just saying, yeah, I'm old, but with age comes wisdom. And her response is 13 people died in Afghanistan. This has nothing to do with the topic of his age. You're just outrage trolling. That's all that is. It's just outrage trolling. Am I going to see the same thing from her in reference to Donald Trump when Donald Trump's running? Because Donald Trump's only Donald Trump's 77, right? Donald Trump's 3 years younger than Biden. If Donald Trump was to win in 2024, he would leave office 2 years older than Biden is right now, if he'd be willing to leave office. Are we going to hear from her? Wow, yeah, Donald Trump's old. Be nice if those soldiers in Niger that got killed could have gotten old. Would be nice if that girl in Yemen in that raid could have gotten old. Like, you could criticize the withdrawal. Then you can do that. It's valid. The withdrawal was not performed with 100% excellency or perfection. That's for sure. Even though Biden did what many other politicians were too cowardly to do, and that was to end our deployment in Afghanistan, which saw no end in sight and no progress on the ground when it comes to containing the Taliban, even if the brutality of Taliban rule is much worse. He pulled out where many other politicians promised the same thing but didn't deliver. Many other politicians said they would end the war and didn't deliver. He did. And instead of talking about that accomplishment of Joe Biden ending a war that most Americans wanted ended, instead they focus on this, even though it's completely unrelated to his age in any manner. This is just outrage porn.
A lot of people here that, waiting for members of their families who will never return home. As we build up forces again in the Middle East, as we are building up forces near Korea and China, because he's lost control of the global world. But he's joking about.
What does that even mean? Building up forces in the Middle East and near China because he's lost control of the global world. What has changed between the Trump presidency and the Biden presidency that's made it so now, now we're confrontational with China, when before, during the trade war that failed, by the way, under the Trump administration, the global world was in line and was following America lockstep. No, it wasn't. How did Joe Biden accomplish turning the entire global world against us in 3 years? It didn't happen. These were the continuation of trends that were already on their way when Joe Biden was in office, when Donald Trump was in office, hell, even when Obama was in office.
About his age, joking about he has no place to go. He's having a great time as Americans are suffering every day.
And the biggest...
I wonder if she made the same complaints about Donald Trump's golfing. I'm just a question. Him joking with the crowd, which Donald Trump does constantly, by the way, both when he was in office and he wasn't in office. There was never any comments about that. In fact, if you listen to Fox or a lot of other people talk about Trump and his more vulgar comments or his joking, sometimes even joking at inappropriate moments, they'll just brush it off like, oh, he's just joking around, let it go. Joe Biden says the most mildest stuff in the world, and it's an insult to every dead American soldier since Korea. It's fucking ridiculous. Come on. Can't they criticize Joe Biden for something substantial? Hey, Joe Biden, let's talk about aid to Israel, and let's talk about what we're holding Israel to account in when it comes to their crackdown on the judicial system, or when it comes to their crackdown on Palestinians. Or hey, let's hold Joe Biden to account when it comes to any number of issues like healthcare or anything. But no, it has to be these tiny little moments, because the stuff that Joe Biden should be held to account on are things that they mostly don't care about. They don't want a public option. They don't want to have a socialized form of medicine in the country that makes sure that the poorest among us don't die on the streets. They don't want to do massive investments in public housing to deal with the housing crisis. They don't want to do these things. So their critiques of Joe Biden have to either be about, wow, there's too many people coming across the border, or superficial critiques like this. I wish TV was much more critical of Biden in a more, I think, productive manner. It's not that I'm angry that there's criticism of Biden. It's just I'm angry that there could be good criticisms of Biden, and they're stuck with this shit. Do you remember when Trump was speaking at the UN and they laughed at him? Yeah, no, that was different. The global world was actually, laughter is a sign of respect at the UN. You guys just don't know that because, a lack of experience in foreign affairs in my community. Donald Trump could literally say to somebody in his crowd, beat the fuck out of that dude in the crowd. Don't give him his jacket. Beat his ass. Kill him. Kill him. He could say that into the crowd, and Fox would be like, you know what? That a little uncouth, but the president's just being the president. Joe Biden's like, knock, knock. Who's there? Orange who? Aren't you glad I didn't say banana? This is like the Holocaust. Get the fuck out of here. This is just like when those 13 soldiers died. What the fuck? Come on. Come on. Such bottom shelf nonsense.